Welcome to the Early Stage Investor, where life-changing returns are our primary concern. One of the surest way of getting life-changing returns is being early to a mega trend. Is nuclear power in the early stages of a global renaissance? If so, the fuel that's going to power nuclear energy will be worth a fortune. And that fuel is uranium, which is why we keep tabs on the space weekly. So in the last year, the Sprott Junior Uranium Miners ETF is up 7.5%, and it's been absolutely falling recently. Now, is there deep value? Is the market wrong for selling these miners? That is the important question. So if we look at the S&P 500 over the last year, it's up 19%. It's been falling, all driven by macroeconomic events, high interest rates, poor economy, but it hasn't fallen as much. So over the last year, even though it underperformed on the way up, it's outperforming on the way down. So these junior uranium miners, extremely volatile. Again, is there deep value in these assets? Well, the Global X Uranium ETF currently pays a dividend of 6%. So the further the price dips when you buy this asset, the higher your passive income return is going to be over time. So this asset will currently pay you 6% a year in passive income to hold it. And as the price rises and uranium gets more valuable, which we're going to dive into, will uranium get more valuable? Is there deep value in these assets? That dividend will rise and your passive income will skyrocket, right? But 6% yield, right? That's the type of returns we're already getting in some of these assets being paid to wait. Why is that a 6% yield? Because this includes Cameco and Kazatomprom, the two largest uranium companies in the world. And Kazatomprom pays a massive dividend. So right now you're getting paid 6% passive income to wait. That's just one example of an asset way to get exposure to this space. So again, is there deep value in uranium miners? Well, nuclear power long-term growth could be staggering. The nuclear renaissance will be worth $1.5 trillion through 2050 in the form of capital investment in new global nuclear capacity, says Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley sees the vision. Why is this exciting for uranium miners? Because the global uranium supply deficit to persist. There isn't enough above ground. Will there be in the foreseeable future? Well, this comes from the World Nuclear Association. In dark red, we see the production of uranium. In light red, we see the required production. So the World Nuclear Association and all of their experts are saying that there is going to be a massive gap. All the mines are known right now. What isn't exactly known is how the demand for nuclear is going to accelerate. We're going to get into demand, but there are no surprises with supply. In fact, there's only downside surprises with supply as these mines struggle more and more, which we'll cover. But again, production, nowhere near the required uranium. So yes, we're getting short-term pullbacks driven by macroeconomic events and high interest rates, but all that does is make mining uranium more difficult for these junior miners. They don't have the capital they need to get it out of the ground, so that causes the supply gap to increase even more and more deep value to accrue to these miners that have this critical fuel, this new oil in the ground. Uranium miners say Australia to miss out on nuclear boom. Uranium explorers are calling on Australian state governments to lift bans on mining the fuel, which is set for a long-term jump in demand as decarbonization spurs a nuclear energy revival. So even with this global supply crunch, Australian state governments are stifling the ability to get this scarce resource out of the ground. So that's just going to compound the global supply crunch. There is lots of uranium in Australia, but because of politics, because of bureaucracy, it's more and more difficult to get it out of the ground. Today, the EIA Gov notes the US produced over 82,000 pounds of uranium in the first quarter of 2024, but fails to mention that the US nuclear reactors consume nearly 50 million pounds per year. So the US banned uranium from Russia. Now they're hoping to get a domestic supply of uranium. Look at where they are. Nowhere close. It is absolutely pathetic currently how little uranium there is above ground, especially in the West, now that Russian uranium has been banned. And look at how little has been able to be produced. So the supply crunch accelerating. And it's going to take a massive spike in uranium to make the future mines profitable enough for these small uranium companies to get the financing needed to get it out of the ground. Right now, interest rates are so high, they don't have access to easy capital. So it's just a self-fulfilling doom loop of supply scarcity, right? And which again makes the miners more valuable over time and makes the uranium fuel scarcer and scarcer. Now, what about the demand for this fuel? Tata Group will be India's first private company to enter the nuclear power business. They're exploring participation in small modular nuclear reactors, right? This is the future. We haven't even seen these launch yet. But what happens when these small modular reactors can be sent everywhere to power everything, including massive ships, including space vessels, including data centers, right? Tata Group had revenue of $56 billion so far in 2024. They are an absolutely enormous company. They see the vision. They're investing billions into this space. China is catching up with nuclear rivals. Look at the amount of nuclear plants under construction in China. Again, this doesn't even factor in small modular reactors, but China just accelerating the adoption of nuclear power and the demand for uranium. In the US, we don't see any under construction yet. Again, not factoring in small modular reactors. Then Hong Kong's clean energy future will be mostly nuclear, right? That's what's changed over the last few years. Nuclear is now seen as a green fuel comparable to renewable energy globally, which means since it's way better than renewable energy, it's way more scalable, it's going to be globally, like in Hong Kong, the primary fuel source. Ontario's moment minister says Canada building blueprint for nuclear energy future. Again, like Hong Kong, a nuclear energy future. And then in Norway, the third nuclear power plant proposal lodged in Norway. So they submitted a proposal to Norway's Minister of Energy for the assessment of the construction of a third power plant based on multiple small modular reactors. This is breakthrough technology. Uranium is the new oil. There's nowhere near enough available. Price has to spike. The assets that control uranium will benefit massively. So is there deep value in these assets that are selling off? The answer is yes. The market is absolutely wrong, just like they were wrong in 2023 when the Sprott Junior Uranium Mining ETF crashed from 19 to 13. They were absolutely wrong then. They are absolutely wrong now.